With my dad, with his support, I got into a top-tier university and became part of the city's premier Moreno family conglomerate. Plus, since my dad had once saved Moreno's patriarch, I ended up marrying the Moreno family's powerhouse, making me the talk of the town. Meanwhile, my younger sister stuck with our mom and landed a spot in a wealthy household through a business-arranged marriage to a hefty second-gen rich kid. At their wedding, my sister donned a white gown, her eyes and brows tinted with a sinister red hue. She kept stabbing me with a table knife repeatedly. "LLA, Zoe, which side are you picking?" The pain from the stab in my stomach hadn't fully subsided when a familiar question echoed in my mind. It felt like a blade piercing my brain, snapping me back to reality, clearly seeing the scene before me. My parents stood on either side, both extending their hands to my sister. It mirrored my past life exactly. The only change was that instead of crying and pleading for their marriage to stay intact, my sister ran straight to my dad without a second glance. "I want to follow Dad." Noticing the grin my sister couldn't hide at the corners of her mouth, I realized I wasn't the only one who had reincarnated. In my previous life, that day, my sister had bailed and made a scene in court, begging our parents not to divorce. With both parents vying for her custody, ultimately, since she was younger, she was granted to our mom. But in this life, because my sister firmly chose our dad, I was awarded to our mom. When the court ruling was announced, my sister sneaked up to me when no one was watching, unable to hide her smirk, and taunted me, "Sis, this time you got to marry that stubborn guy, and I'm the one getting into university and becoming Mrs. Moreno." In my last life, after seeing Moreno at my wedding, my sister clung to him, pretending to be his sister-in-law. Moreno's coldness was naturally mistaken by her for loyalty and purity since she craved his approval so much. I decided to give her a taste of it this time, LLA. When my mom came out with the court papers and found me, my sister had already left with my dad, holding her head high. "LLA, it's not that Mom doesn't want you, it's just that your sister is younger and not as sensible as you." "I'm worried," my mom nervously pinched her fingers, explaining what had just happened in court. "Mom, it's all good. Let's head home. Isn't Uncle Peter's car over there? Looks like it's been waiting forever." Actually, their divorce had dragged on for years. It finally smoothed out because my dad not only had an affair but also got the mistress pregnant. And my sister was clueless about all of it. Seeing my mom still wearing long sleeves under the blazing sun, my eyes welled up for a moment. Beneath those sleeves were bruises from my dad's daily abuse. Uncle Peter got out of the car, opened an umbrella for my mom, and greeted me with a smile. I responded politely and got into the car with my mom. The cool air conditioning made me feel completely at ease. Uncle Peter was my mom's first love. After she married my dad, he never did anything inappropriate. It was only when he found out about my dad's domestic abuse that he angrily hired a lawyer to help her with the lawsuit. I never blamed my mom, even in my previous life, when she insisted on taking my sister away. It was to protect her, as my sister was younger, more fragile, and naive than I was. My mom never forgot about me either. When my dad wouldn't let her see me, she would secretly lie outside the school fence and watch me during my PE classes. This time, my sister and I would live the lives we each desired. Just like in my past life, my mom quickly married Uncle Peter and got the marriage certificate. The difference was that in my previous life, my dad locked me up at home, not letting me see my mom, let alone attend her wedding. This time, I sat at the table closest to the stage, watching my mom and Uncle Peter hold hands and fill the champagne tower. The entire venue raised their glasses and cheered loudly. I also took a sip of champagne, gazing at my mom's radiant smile. The sweet and sour taste of the champagne washed over me. After the wedding, Uncle Peter was still mingling with his business partners. My mom took me to the lounge to remove my makeup. She looked at me apologetically. "LLA, Mom might have another baby with Uncle Peter, but don't stress. I told Uncle Peter he can't be too biased in the future. Future, I'll protect you too. It's all right, Mom. If I'm not too busy with school, I'll hang out with my little bro later." In reality, in my previous life, after my mom married Uncle Peter, she got pregnant. But after my sister found out, she caused a huge scene at home and even ran away, almost getting kidnapped by traffickers. After discussing it, my mom and Uncle Peter decided on an abortion. Although Uncle Peter was hesitant, he didn't object. He took care of my mom during her recovery and didn't blame my sister either. Looking at my mom, even without makeup, there was a definite sparkle in her eyes, and I felt happy too. I wondered what would happen to my sister when she faced my dad and stepmom this time. A few days later, I heard that my stepmom, Aunt Diana, had a miscarriage. When I heard it, I was secretly shocked. Although I knew she was a ruthless person from when my sister stabbed me to death, I was still startled to learn that she had pretended to fall and knocked Aunt Diana down the stairs. Aunt Diana hailed from the countryside. When she married my dad, many rural relatives came. Those relatives were super gossipy, constantly saying that once Aunt Diana gave birth to a son, there would be no spot for my sister in the family, and she'd have to serve her younger brother and so on. I'd heard such comments many times in my past life, but I just ignored them. I never expected my sister would directly eliminate Aunt Diana's baby. I heard my dad tell the relatives that my sister was young and clueless, scolding those gossiping relatives, and then took flowers and jewelry to the hospital to be with Aunt Diana. Everyone claimed that my dad was generous, Aunt Diana was pitiful, and my sister was just ignorant. In the end, it was all those gossipy relatives' fault. I shook my head. It seemed my sister still didn't get my dad and didn't realize how much he cared about this child. He had already secretly checked the baby's gender and knew it was a boy. The next time I saw my sister was at school. In my past life, after following her mom, my sister transferred to a prestigious school. This time, since she was with my dad, he naturally didn't spend as much to send her to a top school. After talking with my mom, I decided to stay at my previous school. The prestigious school wasn't for the college entrance exam but for grooming heirs for various families. There, compared to studying, looks and social connections were more crucial. But all I needed was to go to university. Mom would have a baby with Uncle Peter in the future, and that baby would be the heir of the Peter family. I just wanted a normal life. When I met my sister this time, she was obviously much quieter. Instead of tying her long hair into a high ponytail, she let it drape over her shoulders, covering half her face. She was also wearing a coat over her short-sleeve top, and I clearly saw a thin layer of sweat on her forehead. All her classmates knew me, and soon they helped me call her out. Dad isn't as good as you think. Mom divorced him because he was violent at home. Before I could finish, my sister casually waved her hand and cut me off. So what? You should worry about yourself first. I'm telling you, Mom will be pregnant soon. Think about how to get rid of her baby. I glanced at her face, swollen and hidden under her hair, then turned around and left. Since she didn't need or believe my warning, I just had to quietly watch her disappear into the abyss. When I got home from school, I saw a bunch of gift bags in my room with clothes, game consoles, and the doll I had praised to Mom last time. Mom, why did you buy me so many things? Mom watched me trying on the clothes, helped me zip up the dress, tidied my hair, and said softly, "LLA, Mom is pregnant." Actually, I didn't mind Mom's pregnancy much. Uncle Peter was really nice to me and treated Mom well. It was totally normal for them to have a baby. Apparently, though, I was the only one who thought so. Since Mom got pregnant, both she and I became the main focus in the family. Mom and Uncle Peter kept buying me gifts. They even cleared out a room just to store the gifts for me, fearing the slightest neglect. Uncle Peter pushed aside almost all his social engagements and came home early in the evenings. He'd hold Mom's belly and talk to it under the guise of prenatal education. I just hoped that when this younger brother or sister was born, they wouldn't turn out to be a chatterbox. When Aunt Diana was pregnant, how did Dad and the others treat me? My room was stacked with baby supplies. I didn't even have a proper desk for homework, so I had to put a small table on the bed to write on. When I poured water for Aunt Diana, she complained it was too hot and spilled it all over me. Since she couldn't stand the smell of cooking oil while pregnant, I had to keep the kitchen door tightly closed when cooking. When I just grabbed a chicken wing from the table, Dad smacked my hand with his chopsticks. Almost every day, I was surrounded by endless scolding. But now, I didn't have to do anything and could receive gifts daily. High school exams were pretty frequent. Luckily, my grades were always solid, and I was consistently in the top 10 of my class. This time was no different. To my surprise, my sister's grades had jumped by over 30 points in just a few months. She'd never liked studying and was often at the bottom of her class. But thinking about Dad's methods, I understood it. During breaks, I pretended to walk by my sister's classroom by accident. Sure enough, I saw her hunched over doing homework instead of excitedly chatting with her friends about which milk tea was the best like she used to. Sure enough, in the evening, I saw Dad's WeChat moments flaunting my sister's grades, clearly and subtly hinting that it was because Mom hadn't taught her well before, and now that they were divorced, her grades had improved instantly. I checked the time. It was already 11:30. I had already washed up, drunk the brain-boosting soup Mom had made for me, and nestled into the warm quilt, ready to sleep. But I knew my sister must still be studying. Dad actually didn't understand education at all. He hadn't studied much himself. All he knew was cramming a ton of exercises in. In my past life, my grades were always good. I didn't do an excessive number of exercises, but I would review wrong answers repeatedly and read lots of magazines to broaden my knowledge. However, after the divorce, Dad was desperate to prove himself and just kept pushing me to do more exercises. My study rhythm was disrupted, and my grades plummeted. When he saw my grades drop, he just thought I wasn't trying hard enough and would beat me with a clothes hanger until I begged for mercy and promised to improve. Throughout my senior year, there was barely any intact skin on my body. He demanded my grades improve in every exam, but I was already drained from handling his barrage of exercises, let alone stopping to analyze my weaknesses. Slowly, my sister was only a freshman, and her grades were poor. Maybe she could genuinely improve her grades by accident. I turned off my phone and stopped caring about this charade, then went to sleep peacefully. Senior year flew by, and Mom's belly swelled like a balloon. On the day of the college entrance exam, when Mom was nagging and watching me pack my stuff, she suddenly stopped and held her belly. There was the sound of dripping water in the room. Seeing water trickle down Mom's legs, I quickly helped her sit on the bed and then ran to call Uncle Peter. "It's okay, Mom, don't worry. Go have the baby. I'll check on you after the exam." I pushed Uncle Peter to follow Mom to the hospital and was sent to the exam venue by the family driver. Having gone through the college entrance exam once, even though it was a while ago and I didn't remember the questions and answers, this time I had been studying at my own pace, and my grades had improved significantly compared to my past life. I carefully completed the papers and double-checked them. When the bell rang at the end of the exam, I quickly followed the driver to the hospital. Mom had just given birth and was still a bit weak, but she was in good spirits, and her face still had a faint rosy glow. "It's a boy, LLA. Come and see." Obviously, it was Mom and Uncle Peter who became parents, but all eyes in the room were on me as if they feared I wouldn't like this half-brother. I felt a bit helpless. Looking at the wrinkled little brother in the crib, who looked like a dehydrated little monkey, I reached out and gently tapped his swaddling clothes. "And against my will," I said, "he's so cute, Mom." Mom and Uncle Peter finally smiled. They didn't ask me about the college entrance exam. That was our agreement. They wouldn't ask me until the results came out to avoid putting too much pressure on me. On the day of checking the scores, I was holding my 1-month-old brother and strolling around the yard. Compared to Aunt Diana's younger brother in my past life, this little brother was infinitely cuter. He didn't keep crying all the time, and I wasn't scolded just because he cried. I also didn't have to change diapers day and night. I just needed to play with him when he babbled. To call me, Mom and Uncle Peter were even more anxious about checking the scores than I was. Before I entered the door, I heard Mom's voice, "Why isn't there a score, LLA? Did you stick the barcode on right? Oh, this, what should we do?" "Don't worry, look, it says the score is hidden. It means LLA did so well in the exam. Don't stress." When I heard that my score was hidden, I couldn't help but get excited for a moment. In my previous life, although my grades were good, I could only get into a top-tier university. This time, the score was directly hidden, meaning I was at least among the top 10 in the entire province. I don't know if he was influenced by our emotions, but my brother also laughed loudly and squirmed in my arms. In my past life, to make it easier for me to join the Merino family group, Dad forced me to study business. This time, I applied for the extremely unpopular major of archaeology. Now I didn't need to struggle for a living. I could focus on what I loved. Since I have a second chance, I can't leave any regrets this time. After Dad found out I applied for archaeology, he even called specifically to mock me and Mom, but we both clapped back at him. Actually, at the start, just like in my previous life, Mom still cared about my sister. She was afraid she'd be beaten by Dad or bullied by Aunt Diana, so she secretly visited her many times. However, each time she was sarcastically scolded by my sister, she gradually stopped going. Besides, now that she had a younger brother, she had even less energy to care about my sister. My school wasn't far from home. It was in the neighboring city. However, this major was really demanding, and I hardly had any time to go home even during winter and summer break. I often went out with teachers to collect folklore and study. Luckily, my studies went smoothly. I was already smart, and with my hard work, I was successfully recommended for postgraduate studies. It was my brother's birthday, so I asked for leave and went home to celebrate. When I got home, I found that Mom wasn't in high spirits. After asking, I learned that my sister had gone crazy in the exam room. My sister was locked up in a mental hospital. I promised Mom I'd go see her. When I arrived, the doctor had just given her a sedative. She was lying quietly on the bed, but her whole body was strapped down. Seeing me, she clearly got excited. "Why could you still go to university and you did even better than before?" No, wrong, everything's messed up. You should have failed to enter university. You should have been sent abroad to study. She still thought that it was because of Dad's reputation that I could enter university. In my past life, she didn't like studying, and her grades were poor. She couldn't even get into a regular junior college, so Mom sent her abroad to boost her resume. Unexpectedly, in her eyes, that had become a mistake. My sister struggled on the bed but couldn't move an inch because of the restraints. Only parts of her clothes were rolled up. Seeing the bruises under her clothes, I suddenly couldn't speak. She had spent the same 3 years as I did stuck in a dark and gloomy home. Perhaps it was because her beautiful fantasies were shattered day after day by the beatings that she went crazy. So what if you went to university in the end, you still have to marry that stubborn guy? This time you can't marry Moreno again. Maybe her noise was too loud. The medical staff rushed in and gave her another sedative. Watching her gradually close her eyes while still mumbling those words, in the doctor's view, this might be solid evidence of her madness, but my life was different now. My sister's madness seemed to curb Dad's arrogance a bit. He didn't come to harass me and Mom for several months. LLA, there will be a joint event with the Merino family in a few days. We're invited to give a speech. I'll leave it to you. The professor found me and gave me a general plan for the event. I remembered there was indeed such an event in my past life. Back then, I was already Merino's assistant. Coincidentally, I was interested in archaeology, so I took the initiative to take on this project. Sure thing, Professor. I'll totally nail it. With the experience from my past life, it was pretty handy for me to create the plan. Now that I had studied it professionally and systematically, I also added a lot of specialized content to it. At the Merino family's event site, several senior students who went with me seemed a bit restrained and didn't dare to act impulsively, following the professor closely. On the other hand, I explained the professional knowledge effortlessly and was quite proficient. Moreno and other assistant ministers were sitting in the audience, their eyes fixed on me, and I looked back at them one by one with a smile. After all, these so-called high-level executives and leaders of the Moreno family were just colleagues in my eyes. In my past life, I had even seen them being scolded. After the explanation, I wandered around the exhibition hall. The Moreno family deserved to be the leading enterprise. I wanted to buy every cultural and creative product they made. While hesitating about what to buy, a deep male voice came from behind me. "You can go straight to the backstage and take whatever you like." I turned my head and saw it was Moreno. Would he actually start a convo with others? In my past life, when I was his assistant, he barely spoke, and after I married him, we hardly had any conversations. However, he didn't really do anything to me either. At most, he just ignored me. I still thanked him sincerely and didn't decline. "Your plan is really good. Interested in joining the Moreno family? But I'm still in school, majoring in archaeology." "No worries, you can join after you graduate. The salary will definitely be higher than what you can earn in archaeology." After confirming Moreno wasn't kidding, did he want me to work for the Moreno family like a workhorse in both lives? "No thanks, General Manager Moreno. My family is pretty well off." I didn't plan to continue this topic. I picked out a few products I liked and quickly left. No wonder in my past life, after Dad forced him to marry me by leveraging the favor he owed, he completely ignored me at home but didn't fire me from the company. Turns out he just admired my work ethic. Capitalists are seriously scary. I ran all the way to the professor and joined the senior students. Before I could catch my breath, I received a message from my dad. It turned out Aunt Diana was pregnant again and asked me to bring gifts to visit her. They were really quick. As soon as my sister entered the hospital, they couldn't help getting pregnant. However, in my past life, it was to create a better environment for their child that they forced Moreno to marry me and received a large amount of betrothal gifts. Calculating the time, it was about right. Who knew if they would still target me now that my sister was gone? Better to prepare in advance. I didn't plan to help them out of poverty, so I just casually bought some cheap stuff and went to my dad's place with them. Sure enough, just like in my past life, baby supplies were piled up everywhere in the house. Since my sister was in the hospital, even her bed was stacked with boxes. Dad's face suddenly turned cold when he saw the things in my hand. "What did you buy? It's so shabby." I put the things down indifferently. You know, archaeology doesn't pay much. I'm broke now. I walked around the house casually. I saw several clothes hangers in my sister's room. Some were broken, and there were faint bloodstains on others. A chill ran down my spine. Before, the blood on them was mine, but now it's my sister's. Actually, in my past life, I wasn't much better off than my sister who went crazy. I suffered from severe depression and anxiety but didn't show it or tell anyone. Since starting college, I've been working part-time to earn money for my meds. However, severe depression requires hospitalization, but I didn't dare and couldn't afford it. I could only take the maximum dose of medicine to relieve my physical symptoms and appear normal to others. Even if my sister hadn't stabbed me to death in my past life, I probably wouldn't have survived either. So I didn't hold much resentment towards my sister. Instead, I had a strange sense of gratitude towards her, grateful that she ended that worthless life for me. After sitting at home for half an hour, I left. I walked a long way before showing a smile. Sure enough, this trip wasn't in vain. After all, I discovered something different in my past life. After Aunt Diana got pregnant, she was bossy towards me and didn't even have a good attitude towards my dad. But this time, I found she was not only friendly but also seemed a bit guilty and obsequious. I found Uncle Peter's assistant and asked him to help me investigate the favor my dad had done for Marino's father. In my past life, I only knew he had done a favor for Marino's father, as if he had saved the Marino family group, but I didn't know the specific details. However, I didn't quite believe my dad would help others for no reason without any benefits. Also, regarding Aunt Diana's child, I vaguely felt something was off, but I didn't know where to start the investigation. So I asked the assistant to begin with the people Aunt Diana usually contacted. Before the investigation results came out, Mom found me first. "LLA, what do you think of young Master Chad?" Mom handed me a photo. I almost spit out the water I just drank when I saw it. Wasn't this the stubborn husband of my sister in my past life? Mom, young Master Chad isn't that great looking. Mom was silent for a moment, clearly agreeing with the statement. But he and his parents are really nice people. They also intend to form an alliance with our family through marriage and said they give you 5% of the shares. Mom, our family doesn't lack money. Mom, sighed Lla, you know the Peter family will definitely be handed over to your younger brother in the future. After all, it's the business Uncle Peter has worked so hard for. Mom is worried your younger brother will bully you in the future. If you can get shares from Chad's family to support you, you won't have to worry about anything. I glanced at the little kid squatting beside my feet. He stared at me with wide-open eyes and a tilted head, and his drool stained my pants. Could this little guy bully me in the future? Before I could say anything, Uncle Peter rushed over and sat beside me pitifully. People in our Peter family don't need shares from Chad's family to support us. It's just shares I'll give Lla some right now, 8%. Don't let that chubby kid harm our Lla. It's an eyesore. Uncle Peter quickly made a call and asked someone to draft a share contract, coaxing Mom to reject Chad's family. I picked up the little brother huddled at my feet, wiped his drool clean, and watched him smile at me foolishly. Uncle Peter probably already saw me as his own daughter long ago. I feared it wasn't just me. In my past life, my sister was probably the same in his eyes. Otherwise, how could he have agreed to let Mom have an abortion for my sister's sake and never mentioned it again? It was just that in my past life, my sister harbored resentment in her heart. Mom had always been cautious by nature, and Uncle Peter probably thought my sister was willing, so he didn't say much. Uncle Peter's assistant was very efficient. 2 sealed documents were quickly delivered to me. I opened them and couldn't help sneering, thinking that in my past life, my sister, in this life, and Mom all suffered hardships. The biggest culprit was that useless dad of mine. It's time to settle accounts this time. Sure enough, just like in my past life, Dad couldn't hold back long. He found Marino's father, mentioned the favor from back then, and leveraged it to ask for an arranged marriage between the 2 families. Although it was called an arranged marriage, in reality, it was the Marino family helping the poor. I didn't refuse. I just brought my document bag when meeting with the Moreno family. When Moreno saw me, his eyes lit up a bit, but when he saw my dad behind me, his expression turned completely cold. I couldn't help feeling speechless inside. Could it be he thought I was here to apply for a job? After sitting down, Dad put on his perfect social mask and tearfully recounted the events of those years. At that time, the Moreno family wasn't as big as it is now. It was just an ordinary company, and my dad was an employee there. During the crucial period when the Moreno family was about to go public, rival companies suppressed it, and it almost went bankrupt. However, my dad resolved the crisis and enabled it to go public successfully. Later, Marino's father gave him shares, and he could get dividends every year. Even if he didn't work, he could still receive a considerable amount of dividends annually. It was just that after Moreno took over, he implemented reforms and gradually stopped the dividends. That's why my dad came up with the idea of an arranged marriage to keep the money flowing. Moreno's father hesitated to speak and looked at Moreno. But seeing my dad with teary eyes, he swallowed his words. I just sat beside them eating while watching my dad's impressive performance. When he couldn't act anymore and kicked me under the table, I slowly put down my chopsticks. I took out the prepared materials from my bag and placed them in front of Moreno's father and Moreno. "What's that?" my dad asked in a low voice when he saw the changing expressions on Moreno's father and Moreno's faces. "Oh, there's one for you too. Here you go." I almost forgot about this old bastard of a dad. And I placed the other copy of the document in front of him. Then I leisurely watched the 3 of them change their expressions. "How dare you lie to me?" 2 angry shouts rang out simultaneously. "You've been lying to me for so many years, Kansas. You're really something. You've got some nerve." My dad, who was originally furious, softened under Moreno's father's angry roar and stammered guiltily. "General Manager Moreno, what are you talking about? How could I lie to you?" Moreno's father directly threw the documents at my dad's face. Perhaps too much time had passed, maybe my dad himself had forgotten about it. He was originally an undercover agent sent by a rival company to the Moreno family. It was precisely because he leaked the Moreno family's information that they were on the verge of bankruptcy. His final defection was nothing but a result of weighing the pros and cons. Being a benefactor of the Moreno family was far more beneficial than being an ordinary undercover employee. Having regarded himself as a benefactor for so many years, my dad probably had already brainwashed himself successfully. Looking at the evidence in black and white, he slowly remembered that his true identity had been exposed. We'll see you for leaking commercial secrets and massive fraud in the name of the Moreno family. Moreno was calmer than his father. Miss LLA, could you please send me another copy of the materials? I nodded, added Moreno's contact info casually, and sent all the materials to him. LLA, you're actually helping outsiders deal with me. In a fit of rage, my dad picked up the tableware beside him and threw it at me. I had expected this long ago. I dodged sideways, and the tableware flew past me. You can't escape this prison sentence. You better take advantage of the time you're still free and properly handle this kid who has no blood relation to you. Sure enough, after hearing my words, my dad grabbed the document bag and rushed out to maintain his image of a loving father in front of others. My dad grabbed the document bag and rushed out. He hadn't let Aunt Diana get pregnant in recent years. Unfortunately, my dad could wait, but Aunt Diana couldn't. She had become a mistress and got the position but hadn't had a child for several years. Her relatives in her hometown were getting nastier. Some said she lost her virtue by being a mistress and couldn't get pregnant. Others said I did well in the college entrance exam and that my parents would reunite sooner or later. Unfortunately, she couldn't deny that my dad didn't let her get pregnant, so she had to find a man outside and got pregnant. After my dad found out, he just thought the contraceptive measures hadn't worked well. Besides, my sister happened to go crazy at that time, so he accepted the child. However, he didn't expect the child wasn't his at all. LLA, thanks a lot this time. Moreno's father held my hand and thanked me. I waved my hand and told him that if he wanted to thank me, he could prioritize considering cooperation with the Peter family when opportunities arose. After I got home, I told Mom and Uncle Peter about this matter. Knowing I had secured the Moreno family's cooperation, Uncle Peter was so happy he gave me even more gifts. I looked at my younger brother, still foolishly biting on the talking pen, and thought to myself that if he didn't grow up soon, our dad might hand the whole family over to me. When my dad went to find Aunt Diana, he happened to catch the adulterer at home. Aunt Diana didn't expect Dad to return from the cooperation negotiations so quickly. Dad was so furious that his blood boiled. He kicked Aunt Diana in the stomach, and she immediately started bleeding. The adulterer wasn't an easy guy either. Seeing Aunt Diana bleeding, he grabbed the fruit knife on the table and stabbed it into my dad's abdomen. When I went to identify the body, I saw a white cloth covering my dad's face and dried bloodstains on his abdomen. The police said he had been stabbed dozens of times by that man, leaving a big hole in his stomach. Aunt Diana also lost her baby. That kick injured her body. There was bleeding in her uterus and appendages. To save her life, they had to remove them. She survived but could never have children again. I went to the hospital to see my sister again. After treatment, her mental state had improved a lot. At least she could communicate normally. I told her about what happened to Dad and Aunt Diana and also about how the arranged marriage with young Master Chad was easily cancelled. There was a long silence in the ward. You've also been reincarnated, right? Yeah, it turns out I had a good life in my past life. I didn't say much more to my sister. I just shared these things and then left. When I left, I heard her suppress sobs. I couldn't forgive her since she was the one who killed me with her own hands in my past life. However, it seemed I didn't hate her either. After all, I was living a good life now in a loving environment and didn't need to carry the hatred from my past life. Later, Moreno approached me on his own and asked if I wanted an arranged marriage. I refused him with great annoyance. After 2 lifetimes, I saw this person clearly. He's a complete workaholic. When the rainy season came, although there were often thunderstorms at night, I could sleep soundly listening to the rain. But one day, I suddenly felt out of breath. I opened my eyes and found Mom hugging me tightly and warm liquid flowing down my collar. "Mom, what's wrong?" I stretched out my arm to turn on the light, and then I saw that Mom's entire face was red from crying. Since marrying Uncle Peter, Mom had been very happy and taken good care of herself. Though she was almost 50, she looked like she was in her 30s. No traces remained on her face from the hardships she once endured. I had a dream. I dreamed that when we got divorced, it was your sister who followed me. I knew what she was going to say even before she finished the sentence. She was probably dreaming about our past life. I patted Mom's back to comfort her. After thinking for a while, I told her everything. "I'll take you to see your sister in a few days. It's all in the past. She's much better now, and your younger brother is still here." When we went to see my sister, Mom cried bitterly again. There were far fewer restraint belts on my sister. Only her hands and feet were fixed, but she still had some range of movement. My sister's emotions didn't fluctuate much, probably because she had taken a lot of medicine. She quietly wiped away Mom's tears and softly said, "I'm sorry." After leaving the hospital, I also told Mom about what happened to Dad and Aunt Diana. I hadn't told her before because I thought it didn't concern her anymore. But since Mom now knew and remembered things from our past life, I might as well tell her so she could let off some steam. Sure enough, good and evil will always be rewarded. Sure enough, Mom breathed a sigh of relief after hearing this. She had been domestically abused by Dad for several years. It seemed that at this moment, her imprisoned soul was finally freed. Mom took me to the mall and bought a bunch of gifts. There were gifts for me, for Uncle Peter, and most were for my younger brother. "Mom, why are you buying so many toys for my brother? Didn't you say a few days ago that you wouldn't buy him too many?" Mom didn't stop picking up toys. "Buy more. He almost didn't survive. I think we should be nicer to him in the future." I knew Mom was referring to the baby she had aborted in our past life. So when we got home, my brother was buried under the toys. He tried to free himself from the pile but couldn't muster any strength. He could only wriggle around and stammer out the few words he knew. "Mom, Dad, sister." Later, I completed my postgraduate and doctoral studies and gradually began having my own students. The name Lila became known by more people, not as the daughter of the Peter family, but as an archaeologist. I met Marino several times later. He had been persistently trying to poach me to join the Marino family. However, gradually, I didn't need to refuse him myself. The students following me would grab my arm, afraid I'd be snatched away. "No way, Professor Lla is the youngest and most renowned professor in the field. Do you know how hard it is to get into her classes?" Sometimes a little kid would rush out. "Oh, he can't be called a little kid anymore. He was already a teenager, taller than me. It's enough for you to cooperate with our Peter family. Don't try to bother my sister."